Imagine your entire life laid out in front of you. A simple grid. Each square represents 1 week. If you live to be 80 years old, you get roughly 4,000 weeks. That's it. 4,000 chances to wake up. 4,000 opportunities to create memories. 4,000 pieces of existence. Now imagine crossing out every week you've already lived. Take your age and multiply it by 52. That's roughly how many weeks have already disappeared forever. You can never earn them back. You can never relive them. You can never negotiate for more. And yet most people live as though time is unlimited. They postpone their dreams. They delay difficult conversations. They wait for the perfect opportunity. They tell themselves they'll start tomorrow. Then tomorrow becomes next week. Next week becomes next year. And before they realize it, decades have passed. The greatest tragedy isn't death. Death is inevitable. The greatest tragedy is reaching the end of your life and discovering you never truly lived while you had the chance. Most people think they have a time management problem. They don't. They have an awareness problem. Because when you become conscious of how little time you actually have, your priorities begin to change. Suddenly, the things that once seemed important lose their grip. The approval of strangers matters less. Status matters less. Comparison matters less. And that's exactly what happened to a man named Alfred Nobel. In 1888, Nobel opened a newspaper and experienced something almost no human being ever experiences. He read his own obituary. A reporting mistake had caused newspapers to believe he had died instead of his brother. The headline was brutal. "The Merchant of Death is dead." Imagine reading those words. Imagine discovering how the world would remember you while you were still alive. Nobel wasn't remembered as an inventor. He wasn't remembered as a visionary. He was remembered as a man associated with destruction. For a moment, he saw his future legacy with complete clarity. And he hated what he saw. Most people never get that opportunity. Most people don't realize how they're being remembered until it's too late to change it. But Nobel still had time. He spent the remainder of his life building a different legacy. A legacy that eventually became the Nobel Prize, one of the most respected honors on Earth. His story forces us to confront an uncomfortable question. If someone wrote your obituary today, what would it say? Would it talk about how much time you spent scrolling through your phone? Would it mention all the opportunities you were too afraid to pursue? Would it describe a life of purpose or a life of hesitation? The truth is that every day you're writing that story, not with words, with actions. Every decision becomes a sentence. Every habit becomes a paragraph. Every year becomes a chapter. And the story is being written whether you're paying attention or not. The problem is that most people are asleep while writing it. Not physically asleep, mentally asleep. They move through life on autopilot. Wake up, check notifications, go to work, come home, watch content, sleep, repeat. Days blur into weeks. Weeks blur into years. Eventually, life becomes a routine so familiar that people stop noticing they're alive. But this isn't entirely their fault. The modern world is designed to capture attention. Every app on your phone is competing for your focus. Every notification is fighting for a piece of your awareness. Every platform wants you to stay just a little longer. And the longer you stay distracted, the less conscious you become of your own existence. Look around. People can't sit alone for 5 minutes without reaching for stimulation. Silence has become uncomfortable. Boredom feels unbearable. We've become addicted to escaping the present moment. The moment our minds become quiet, we immediately search for something to fill the space. A video, a message, a headline, a distraction, anything except our own thoughts. Because being alone with ourselves forces us to confront questions we'd rather avoid. Am I happy? Am I living the life I actually want? Am I becoming the person I hope to become? These questions are uncomfortable, but they are also necessary, because the quality of your life depends on your willingness to face reality. And reality is simple. Your time is limited. Your weeks are disappearing. And while you're busy looking everywhere else, life is quietly passing by. But if distraction is stealing your life, why is it so difficult to stop? Why do intelligent people continue repeating the same patterns year after year? The answer lies deep inside the human brain. And once you understand it, you'll never see yourself the same way again. What if I told you that most of what you experience isn't reality? At first, that sounds ridiculous. You trust your eyes. You trust your memories. You trust your thoughts. But neuroscience tells a very different story. Your brain is not simply observing the world around you. It's constantly predicting it. Every second of every day, your brain takes information from the past and uses it to create expectations about the present. In other words, you're not seeing reality exactly as it is. You're seeing your brain's best guess of reality. Most of the time, this system is incredibly useful. It helps you navigate the world efficiently. It allows you to recognize faces, avoid danger, and make quick decisions. But there's a hidden downside. The same predictions that help you survive can also trap you. Imagine a hill covered in fresh snow. Now, imagine taking a sled to the top. The first trip down leaves a faint trail. The second trip follows that trail. The third makes it deeper. After enough repetitions, a groove forms. And eventually, the sled has no choice but to follow the same path. Your thoughts work the same way. Every belief, every fear, every assumption, every story you tell yourself, they're all carving grooves into your mind. At first, they're just thoughts. But over time, they become mental highways. Automatic, predictable, unquestioned. Maybe somewhere in childhood, you experienced rejection. Your brain created a story. I'm not good enough. At first, it was just one thought. But years later, that thought became a groove. Now, every failure seems to confirm it. Every criticism reinforces it. Every setback strengthens it. Soon you stop questioning the belief entirely. You simply accept it as truth. The same thing happens with fear. Someone fails once and decides they're not talented. Someone gets hurt and decides they can't trust people. Someone experiences embarrassment and spends years avoiding risk. The brain loves familiarity, even when familiar patterns cause suffering. Because to your brain, predictable pain often feels safer than uncertain change. This is why so many people remain stuck. Not because they lack intelligence, not because they lack potential, but because they're unconsciously running the same mental programs over and over again. Neuroscientists call part of this system the default mode network. It's one of the most fascinating networks in the human brain. When you're not focused on a task, this network becomes active. It starts replaying the past, analyzing mistakes, imagining future problems, creating stories about who you are. And while this ability helped humans evolve, it comes with a cost. The default mode network is often responsible for rumination, overthinking, anxiety, self-criticism, and endless mental noise. Think about how much time people spend reliving moments that no longer exist. A conversation from 5 years ago, an embarrassing mistake, a missed opportunity, or worrying about events that haven't even happened yet. Meanwhile, the present moment slips away unnoticed. Many people spend their entire lives trapped between memories of the past and fears of the future, rarely experiencing the only thing that's actually real. Right now, this moment. Some researchers even describe the default mode network as the neurological home of the ego. The voice in your head that constantly says, "This is who I am. This is what I'm capable of. This is what other people think of me." The ego creates a sense of identity, but it can also become a prison. Because once you've spent enough years telling yourself a story, you begin defending it. Even if that story is making you miserable. A person who believes they're unlucky notices every setback. A person who believes they're unlovable notices every rejection. A person who believes they're incapable notices every failure. The brain selectively searches for evidence that confirms its existing beliefs. Not because it's trying to hurt you, because it's trying to remain consistent. And consistency feels safe. But growth requires something different. Growth requires uncertainty. Growth requires questioning the stories you've been carrying for years. Fortunately, the human brain is not fixed. For decades, scientists believed the adult brain was largely unchangeable. Today, we know that's not true. The brain remains adaptable throughout life. This ability is known as neuroplasticity, and it may be one of the most hopeful discoveries in modern science. Neuroplasticity means your mental grooves are not permanent. Your patterns are not permanent. Your beliefs are not permanent. The person you are today is not the person you must remain forever. Every new experience has the potential to reshape the brain. Every challenge creates new neural pathways. Every difficult conversation, every courageous action, every moment of awareness, all of it begins changing the landscape of your mind. This is one reason practices like meditation can be so powerful. Meditation teaches you to observe your thoughts instead of automatically believing them. For the first time, you begin noticing the voice in your head. You realize that a thought is just a thought, not a command, not reality, not destiny. And that realization changes everything. Because once you can observe your mind, you stop being controlled by it. You create space between yourself and your habits. Space between yourself and your fears. Space between yourself and the stories you've repeated for years. Another powerful force for change is awe. Moments so vast and beautiful that they temporarily silence the ego. Standing beneath a sky full of stars. Looking across a mountain range, watching the ocean during a storm. In those moments, something remarkable happens. Your problems shrink, your identity softens, and for a brief period, you stop obsessing over yourself. You become connected to something larger, something beyond your usual mental patterns. The grooves loosen, the snow becomes fresh again, and suddenly, new possibilities appear. This is what transformation really looks like. Not becoming a different person overnight, not finding some magical secret, but slowly waking up from unconscious patterns, questioning old assumptions, creating new paths where old ones used to be. The prison was never locked. Most people simply never realized they were standing inside it. But once you see the bars, you can begin walking toward freedom. And that freedom leads to an even bigger question. If you could break free from the mental patterns that have been controlling your life, what would you do with the time you have left? If you could break free from the mental patterns that have been controlling your life, what would you do with the time you have left? Most people never seriously ask themselves that question, because from childhood, we're taught that life is about achievement. Get good grades, get a good job, earn more money, buy more things, keep climbing. And while there's nothing wrong with ambition, many people spend their entire lives climbing a ladder without ever asking whether it's leaning against the right wall. They become experts at doing, but strangers to being. Think about the moments that matter most in your life. The moments you still remember years later. A meaningful conversation. A sunset you couldn't stop staring at. Laughing with friends until your stomach hurt. Holding someone's hand when they needed you. What makes those moments special isn't productivity. It's presence. For a brief moment, you weren't trapped in the past or worried about the future. You were completely there. And that's what most people are missing. Not more time, more presence. We often tell ourselves we're spending time with the people we love. But are we really there? Or is our attention buried in a screen, a notification, or tomorrow's problems? You can sit beside someone for hours and never truly connect with them. Presence is more valuable than time. Because people remember how you made them feel, not how long you were physically nearby. The truth is simple. Life only happens in the present moment. Not next week. Not next year. Not after you achieve your goals. Now. Yet most people spend their lives trying to escape the present. Always chasing the next milestone, the next promotion, the next achievement, believing happiness exists somewhere ahead. But every time they arrive, the finish line moves again. Because achievement alone was never meant to create fulfillment. Meaning comes from something deeper. Connection, wonder, purpose, and awe. Researchers have studied the emotion of awe, the feeling you get when you encounter something vast and beautiful. A mountain range, a star-filled sky, the ocean stretching beyond the horizon. In one study, participants were asked to draw a small stick figure representing themselves. Then they were shown images of breathtaking natural landscapes. Afterward, they drew themselves again. Most people made their figures noticeably smaller, not because they felt less important, but because awe reduced the power of the ego. It reminded them they were part of something larger. And perhaps that's what modern life has taken from us. We become trapped inside our own concerns, our own goals, our own endless mental noise. Meanwhile, the world continues offering moments of beauty that we're too distracted to notice. But as technology becomes more powerful, another question emerges. What does it actually mean to be human? Artificial intelligence can already write articles, create art, analyze information, and solve problems faster than most people. In many areas, machines will continue surpassing us. But intelligence isn't what makes us human. Consciousness is. Emotion is. Love is. Vulnerability is. A machine can process information, but it cannot feel heartbreak. It cannot experience wonder. It cannot treasure a moment because it knows the moment will end. Humans can, because humans are mortal. And strangely enough, that's what gives life its meaning. Imagine reading a book that never ends. Eventually, every chapter would lose significance. The ending is what gives the story value. Your life works the same way. The reason this moment matters is because it won't last forever. The reason relationships matter is because one day they will end. The reason life feels precious is because it is temporary. Mortality is not the enemy of meaning. It is the source of meaning. Every conversation, every opportunity, every sunrise, every heartbeat becomes valuable because it is limited. That's why your 4,000 weeks matter. Not because the number is frightening, because the number is finite. One day, you will run out of weeks. Not because something went wrong, because that's the deal every human being receives. The question is whether you will spend the weeks you have left consciously or unconsciously, creating or consuming, living or merely existing. Ask yourself honestly, what is your biggest limiting belief? What opportunities has it cost you? What experiences has it prevented? And what will happen if nothing changes? Because the future version of you is being built by the choices you make today. Fear will always be there. Doubt will always be there. Uncertainty will always be there. They are the price of admission to a meaningful life. The goal isn't to eliminate fear. The goal is to stop letting fear make your decisions. Because nothing weakens fear faster than action. The conversation you've been avoiding. The project you've been postponing. The dream you've been waiting to pursue. The life you've been planning to start someday. Someday is an illusion. There's only now. This day. This hour. This moment. This square on your grid of 4,000 weeks. And one day that square will disappear forever. So take the risk. Make the call. Start the project. Tell people you love them. Look up from the screen. Pay attention to the life happening around you. Because in the end, nobody wishes they had spent more time scrolling. They wish they had lived. Fully. Deeply. Consciously. The bank of time never closes. But eventually, every account reaches zero. Make sure your story is worth remembering.